Hi there, I'm Leanne Vanderputten, mother of 11, grandmother of 41 and counting, from Finer Femininity, where I share with you tidbits of old-fashioned goodness and wholesomeness to help us on the path to being joyful, traditional, feminine Catholic women. Today our article is Be Honest and Sincere by Father Lavosic in the Catholic Family Handbook. We will lightly touch on such things as nagging, being temperate toward material things, jealousy, and in-laws. Be honest and sincere. You owe your spouse truth and sincerity. Our Lord is the greatest example of these virtues. He wished everyone well and was never anything but kindness itself in word and deed. He never made use of men for selfish ends, but spoke and acted openly, sincerely, and uprightly. Honesty and sincerity bring about confidence and a spirit of loyalty. Few things contribute more to the success of a marriage. Such confidence bolsters a husband's flagging courage and inspires him with the will to win and to measure up to the high opinion that his wife and children have of him and his abilities. The enemies of honesty and sincerity are nagging, miserliness, jealousy, and in-law trouble. Avoid nagging. Nagging is not always the fault of women, yet it seems that they often fall victims to this disagreeable habit that spoils family happiness. Do not be a nagging wife. Do not try to remake your husband. Prize your own individuality and be willing to put up with his. Do not expect your husband to render daily reports on where he was, why, when, and with whom. Be an eager listener, but a reluctant inquisitor. You must assure yourself of your husband's unwavering devotion. The result of your placing implicit confidence and trust in him will not incline him to take advantage of your refusal to snoop or pry or to step out of line. He will be won by decency, gratitude, loyalty, and trust, but never with fear. A sincere and trusting wife will have a great influence in shaping her husband's life. Stand by your husband and share with head and heart his successes and failures. Give him due encouragement, but have the courage to drive home a sometimes unpleasant truth. Never be afraid of responsibility, but be prepared to embark on a new course of life with your husband should the need arise. You will bring to your husband the love and inspiration he needs in the many problems of life, and that love and inspiration will weave threads of gold in his life's pattern. Wealth, fame, and power are no satisfactory substitutes for the hard-earned joys of the married life, for not one of them can satisfy the hunger of the heart for love. Be temperate toward material things. Ill-regulated love of material things can be the cause of much trouble, unhappiness, and downright misery in the home. Your attitude toward money can be a source of great friction if it is not well ordered. Two extremes are to be avoided: miserliness and prodigality. A miser lives in some comfort, but has to struggle mightily with himself to give away even a small sum. A spendthrift is one who foolishly, wastefully, and usually selfishly squanders money, whether he happens to possess little or much. Today there is a craze for buying on credit. A wife who cannot see an expensive item for household use in a store without buying it can keep a man so loaded down with debt that he will find no joy in the use of these unpaid-for luxuries. When a wife is foolish and childish in handling money, it would be prudent for a husband not to let her have any money at all. But such cases are rare. The other extreme is intolerable miserliness. The principle is, I pay as I go. Some men not only refuse to incur debts, but strive for a bank account 10 times greater than the cost of anything their wives want to buy. A little debt can be okay. It keeps both spouses striving and working together. whereas without it there is less incentive to cooperate and sacrifice. But that means a reasonable amount of debt. A sensible wife will accept limitations on her desire for new things, and at the same time a sensible husband will be willing to incur a reasonable debt. Miserliness is not in accord with the honesty and sincerity you owe your family. If you are the father of a family, your first obligation is to provide the economic necessities for your wife and children. You are to be the breadwinner of the family, and you should not expect your wife to neglect your home and children for the sake of extra income unless extraordinary circumstances indicate a real need. A mother's job is to keep up a good home and raise her children properly. Greed or selfishness should not induce her to neglect these tasks for the sake of the additional income she can earn from a job outside the home. In marriage, you entered into the closest possible partnership with each other. The result of this partnership is that you are bound to share not only those faculties that are involved in the procreation of children, but other things as well, such as material possessions. The free use of material things is one of the greatest joys of ownership. If you, as a husband, deprive your wife of that joy, you are not sharing in the full sense of the word. The fact that you pay the bills does not mean that you are sharing these things completely. Do not be a party to some of the abuses practiced by some money-pinching husbands. Do not keep from your wife the actual amount of your income, or refuse to let her have a word to say about money matters, with the result that she has no idea how to buy for the present or to plan for the future. She has a right to know exactly how much you are earning, and she should be taken into your counsels on the economic planning for the home. Business dealings and other arrangements that affect the welfare of your home should be common knowledge. Neither of you should ever contract a personal debt without first talking it over with the other and reaching an agreement. A wise wife is satisfied with giving her honest opinion. The final decision rests with her husband, who is the head of the home, even as Christ is the head of the church. Do not imitate the practice of some husbands who give their wives just barely enough to provide necessities for the home, for herself, and for the children. Your wife should be a sharer of your income, not an unsalaried servant held to account for every penny she spends. Some husbands spend freely on their own amusements, but cannot afford recreation money for their wives and children. Your wife has a right to spend just as much of your money for her personal pleasure as you do for your own. The ideal arrangement is that both of you share in whatever pleasures money can buy. Combat your jealousy. Jealousy makes you eager to have all the affection and attention of your spouse. It may also be an enemy of honesty and sincerity, and consequently of love and harmony. A jealous husband is one who feels uncertain about his wife's love, usually because he knows he is guilty of faults that make him undeserving of it, and who foolishly thinks that he can hold her loyalty to him only by preventing her from being friendly with anyone else. He deprives her of every kind of social life that he can forbid or prevent. He is suspicious of every innocent, friendly contact his wife makes with others. He tries to keep her separated completely from her own family. This jealous possessiveness transforms any feelings of love the wife once had for her husband into feelings of hate. It makes a wife's duty of fidelity to her husband much more difficult than it should be. An unreasonably jealous wife is usually in some degree responsible for the wandering of her husband's love. It is natural that after several years of married life, some degree of taking one another for granted sets in. It would be better if the courtesy, consideration, and thoughtfulness that marked your courtship and the first years of marriage could survive through the years. Your husband may strain to appear his best before other women and show his worst side to you, not because he no longer loves you, but because he considers your love safely in his possession. This conduct is no reason for jealousy. If you are a jealous wife, put yourself back into competition, not only for your husband's love, but also for his kindly attention. It is your job to win and hold by giving proofs of your own love, the love you may think he is turning away from you. Jealousy is not a constant passion. Even if you have never felt the sting of jealousy, you may, under certain circumstances, experience a blind surge of it. Be resolved to avoid with utmost care those things which might awaken the passion of jealousy in your spouse. Be patient and understanding toward your in-laws. One of the most common sources of jealousy is in-law trouble, which can pull a couple apart more rapidly than many of the other disintegrating factors, if this is the chief reason for argument. Marriage does not release a husband and wife from the duty of honoring and loving their mother and father, but it does make duties to their spouse supersede duties to their parents. That is what God said clearly of Adam, the first husband. Therefore a man leaves his father and his mother and cleaves to his wife, and they become one flesh. Some husbands and wives never quite leave their mothers and fathers. They permit them to have more to say over their actions and plans than their spouses do. In-law trouble is very seldom caused solely by unreasonable jealousy on one side alone. If your spouse dislikes your relatives, look into yourself for whatever grounds you may have given for that aversion. A wife who was spoiled and pampered by her family will sometimes seek an escape from new responsibility by running to those who will continue to baby her. At the first sign of disagreement, she will seek solace in the overindulgence of her parents. This will react unfavorably on her husband, who will gradually feel himself to be second in her affections when she has promised to hold him first. Thus, antagonism for the parents-in-law will grow with every incident. If you are the husband of such a person, you will not awaken her to a sense of duty to you by violently asserting your rights or by using harsh language. Never look upon in-laws as rivals for your partner's affection. Filial love differs vastly from conjugal love, so there is room for both in the heart of every spouse. As in courtship, you won your wife from possible rivals by making yourself appear so kind and noble that she could not resist your appeal. So, after marriage, you have to prove yourself superior to her parents and relatives in devotion to her. You must back up your rights by continuous human expressions of love and interest. In this way, the competition between you and her relatives will soon end. On the other hand, a husband who shows more than usual attachment to his parents almost always has trouble with jealousy on the part of his wife. He does not care what happens to his wife and children. His mother comes first. He takes her side against his wife. He lets his wife suffer rather than deal sternly with his mother. This is especially the case if he feels that even after marriage he must donate a large part of his income to his parents, even though they are not in great need. Getting along with in-laws calls for tact and diplomacy. You must make allowance for the tendency of parents to think of their married son or daughter as their little child whom they wish to mother still. Try to keep the in-law relationships on an even keel by being patient and understanding, and you will have peace. If you think your husband is acting imprudently in giving help to his family, present your arguments to him in a kind way. You may even ask him to discuss the problem with a third and neutral person. Show goodwill by proposing a compromise. Do not adopt a bitter, resentful attitude toward your husband, or say anything unkind about his relatives to him or to anyone else. Whether you win or lose your point, conquer and hide your feelings of bitterness. Showing them would be risking the peace and unity of your home. Security for the future is bought at too great a price if it means that you are to be divided in spirit by a deeply rooted grudge. Many a home has been wrecked by such resentment, and there is little comfort in the wreckage even if you maintain that you were right. Give preference to your spouse. It is wise to establish distance from in-laws if that is possible. It is true that there are many cases in which charity demands that an exception to this rule may be made. Nevertheless, there are other cases in which charity would be better served all around if some arrangement were made other than having an in-law in the same home. After marriage, a wife's first duty is to her husband, not to her mother. If her mother remains with her, it should be only on the condition that she will say and do nothing that would in any way mar the relationship between husband and wife. If a mother who lives with her married daughter arouses suspicions in her daughter's mind, if she interferes with her right to run her own home, if she nags and complains and makes unreasonable demands, the best thing to do is to rent an apartment for her and let her live alone. Mothers-in-law should not be permitted to destroy family harmony. When you can do nothing except offer your home to an in-law, at the very outset try to come to an understanding and agreement with all the parties concerned as to the conditions under which you will live in peace together. Let your in-law know that you are glad to be able to offer your home, but let it be made clear that the home remains yours and that it is not to be spoiled by interference and meddling. If there is no present way out of the difficulty, there may be room for an honest examination of conscience as to whether a wife is letting things get on her nerves that should be neutralized by a spirit of patience and charity. Small annoyances, unavoidable with two women in the same household, can be blown up into major irritations. God will give sufficient grace to bear those annoyances and to better the situation by prudent firmness and willing charity. The advice of a wise priestly confessor will help. A mother-in-law cannot be such a bad woman if she is the mother of the one you love very dearly. It is most important that you show that you prefer your husband or wife to everyone else in the world. You refuse this sign of preference when you insist on living with a parent, or taking a parent into your home when there is no urgent reason of necessity or charity to do so. You are failing in your love if you pay more attention to what your parent wants than to what your spouse wants, if you are more concerned about your parent's welfare and happiness, if you let a parent rule the household, or if you take your parent's side in disputes. This is like going back on the promise you made in marriage and acting contrary to God's revealed plan for marriage. Finer Femininity quote for the day. As the educator and trainer of the immature minds and wills entrusted to you by God, your vocation is difficult. It calls for many qualities that are virtues in themselves: zeal, painstaking effort, patience in weariness, and the humility that joyfully stoops to the level of the child. It is hard work, and the temptation must come at times to abandon the effort and to take life easy. Only the seriousness of the undertaking and the knowledge that it is done for God can sustain the untiring effort demanded. And that was Father Lawrence Lavasic. Thank you for tuning in today. Come and visit me at my Finer Femininity website. I have a Facebook page too where I share with you inspirations of all kinds. I also have lots of beautiful handcrafted items in my Meadows of Grace shop. Look for those links in the description below. May God bless you and Our Lady cover you with her mantle. Saint Anne, pray for us.